Welcome to another episode of Small Town Big Personalities. I am your host, Emily Rose Gray, and I am so excited to tell you that I found some queers up here to join the show. Hi, guys. Do you want to introduce yourself? Paige.
I'm Paige.
Let's start.
I'm Paige.
That's all we're going to do?
That's all I got.
Paige is from also upstate.
Yes.
And does what?
Oh, I am a teacher's aide.
Okay.
I'm a server. And I work at a rock climbing gym.
AKA Jack of all trades.
Oh, that's cool.
Also really apropos the lesbian vibe with the rock climbing gym.
I want to go rock climbing.
Oh, 100%. It's not fun. It's not fun.
I love rock climbing.
And Kay, let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Kay. I'm from upstate New York. I've lived here for 25 years. Born and raised. I'm non-binary and I'm an accountant and a photographer.
So guys, I was really stoked to have this episode with you all because I've just been sitting here pondering my queerness alone in this condo, wondering why I'm so alone. So I figured we'd get into why is it so hard for us to find each other up here? What is the queer experience, particularly for women and non-binary individuals? And how does that translate into the way that we take care of ourselves, in the way that we date, in the way that we engage, in the way that we, like I said, the self-care thing, all 360. So how I met you guys, let's talk about that first. Paige, you and I met through mutual neighbors in this small town. And immediately they were like, oh my, you guys are going to get set up.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are going to love each other. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Like, not every single lesbian is going to literally love each other instantaneously. Right. So that was kind of funny. Any thoughts on that?
That was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
3 or 4 years
ago.
I was terrified when I first met you.
Why?
Because it's not every day you just wake up and meet a lesbian. Like it's
exactly.
And there was
I thought it was just like so intimidatingly beautiful that it just... That's what I was thinking.
I can't even think.
Silence.
It was so long ago.
Oh my God. Wow.
I don't even know.
Never mind. Okay. Cool. So Kay, in true...
I find you intimidatingly beautiful. I'll admit.
we all do.
Oh
we
my
all
God.
Do. We gotta flatter you.
Leo season is eternal, guys. So Kay, you and I met in the classic format of Tinder,
yes,
which I have noticed is the only form of community that exists up here. Any thoughts on that for either of you?
I think that's
accurate
and a little embarrassing
it's
almost.
Sad.
Like it's sad. Yeah. Like I don't want to say I feel ashamed about it, but like there really is nothing organized for queer people around here. Typical like. There's lesbians and there's gay men and that's it.
Yeah.
And like I know gay people around here who are like extremely transphobic and like people just don't have that community mindset of like, we're all in this together.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think let's just start back in the day, because in my opinion, the transition between 10 years ago when we were kids, 10, 15 years ago when we were kids to now is enormous as far as the progression of LGBTQ acceptance.
Yeah.
And yet there are still so many things that feel similar to that past experience. So I would like to hear about both of your experiences growing up, understanding your queerness. Did you not understand it at all? Let's get into that a bit. Paige, you want to start us off?
Start off. Yeah.
Heavy question.
Jeez. I mean,
just tell us how you came out. No big deal.
Okay. Well, I was 22 when I came out.
Okay. Late bloomer, like me.
I'm a late bloomer in every
You were later than I was.
Every aspect of my life, late bloomer.
Late bloomer.
Well, I think I always knew, I imagine a child dressed in the same outfit, like nothing, ain't a damn thing changed there. I mean, I always found women attractive from a young age. Like I like those teacher, like I can think back on those teacher crushes.
I never like that completely didn't hit with me.
And it wasn't always just like, I love this particular woman. It was like, oh, I'm just like staring at her. Like, and it wasn't really like, it didn't really have like a like a heartbeat yet. Like it was just new to me. Like it was just like, I just like knew it was a part of me, but I just kind of ignored it. I had my first crush on a girl in middle school. I mean, I was sitting next to her in all these classes. It was so overwhelming. And I really didn't enjoy having a crush on somebody. So I just like buried it away for the longest time. And I didn't have feelings for a woman again until I was 22.
Wow.
And then it all happened. Like as soon as it happened, it was like lighting a stick of dynamite.
So do you feel like you kind of kept yourself in a closet in a way?
I guess. Yeah. I think it was just because I didn't have anybody I was really going for, you know? And now, like, I think my biggest weakness is just women and lusting after women. I just love them. So
well, you and I have that in common.
So it's just, it was literally like a stick of dynamite. Like as soon as I started going for women, I realized, and I've been able to look back on my life and be like, wow, I could have kissed that girl in middle school. Like I could have done that. Wow. So many things I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
And then it just happened. So that's
how about you, Kay?
I feel like I've been coming out for a long time. Like
it is an eternal process.
Like I don't even remember how old I was. I was definitely later. I feel like that's so typical around here. Like most people I know were not out in high school. I grew up in like very homophobic high school and stuff. Paige and I went to the same high school. Sure, you had that same experience of like just everyone being homophobic.
Oh yeah, I got called a dyke.
Were there a lot of like,
oh my God,
because a lot of
people
slurs and just
called me a lesbian since I was in middle school.
Were there any queer people?
No, not out. No, not out.
You could kind of know. Like
I mean, statistically speaking, there has to be folks in the room that are.
A lot of them flock together too. Like even before they come out, like there's definitely, I don't know, like a kinship between me and like a few like queer people that I went to high school with. Where it's just kind of like like I went to my senior ball with like a guy who's gay, and we were just like,
that's what we all did. We had our beards.
Yeah, we're like,
strong beard.
Came out to my parents and my family as bi. Oh God, I was probably 20 or 19. And that was really big. And then I haven't really formally come out as anything else other than on like Facebook and stuff. Like I don't find like, I feel like it's a burden to like sit people down and be like, I'm non-binary and I'm also a lesbian, and let me explain to you what that means. I kind of have this mentality of like, if you're going to ask me my pronouns, if you're going to ask me what's up, if you're going to be one of those people who's like open to communicating about it, I'm happy to talk about it. But if you're going to be one of those people who's like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, and I'm not fucking with that. I just don't. It's too much labor and I'm not doing it. I've opted out. I'm coming out all the time.
Right. Random question. How do you feel about coming out with your gender identity versus coming out with your sexual preference? Do you feel like there's any stark difference there?
Yeah. The gender stuff rocks people's worlds. Like, there's a lot of people who just have a very narrow view of the world and what gender is, especially if you're like raised Christian or like in any of those other religions that are like, God made man and woman and they are meant to have a baby and that's how the world should go. Like those type of people do not react well to the introduction of like other genders.
And something, I mean, Paige and I, she, her, women.
Yeah.
So that's a layer that we don't understand, right? So it's, it's the layering
Especially
factor
here.
I've brought up a couple times now. The more intersectionality that is introduced into your life, the more complicated it gets, right? So that's always something to keep in mind. If you are a straight person interacting with a queer person, be very open-minded, realize that it's your responsibility to hold yourself accountable to using the right language that they prefer and asking them what language that they prefer, right? And understanding what things are okay to talk about, what things are not, right? In my case, a lot of fetishizing is difficult to have those conversations, right? It's one thing for someone to be like, explain to me what pansexual means. Explain to me why you feel like you're attracted to a full spectrum of people versus like, oh, tell me what it's like to fuck a girl. Like, you know, that's different. That is just different. And like, I'll play along, whatever. But in a way, it kind of feels disrespectful to who you are and what you represent.
We are fetishized all the time, you know? And it's not even men or women. It's anybody. Like they know that we are queer and they are just so curious about it that they will just say whatever they are thinking, and it'll be the dirtiest thing they could say to you. And it's just
no harm, no foul.
Yeah. They feel like they're entitled to talk to you like that.
Yeah. And I wonder how much that has to do with like people's only interaction with queer people being like through porn, because I feel like that's the case.
They said it. Like, holy like shit. I never thought about that. Exposure.
Yeah. Exposure is in porn, because that's literally the best, most diverse representation of people in our media. 100%. If you really think about it.
And I'm curious, Paige, you work at a very high society, thriving metropolis bar, and you have a lot of attractive, middle-aged women who love to come in and just get that lesbian attention. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Oh, I've been bartending for 9 years, and I've had women leave me their hotel room keys a couple times. I have had women ask me to sleep with them and their husband countless times. Coworkers, first few times you hear it, it's like sort of flattering, but extremely weird. And then at this point, it's just like, okay, I get it. Like one of you has a curiosity, or like you want to have, like, it's just like, can you just fuck off? Just fuck off.
Do you feel like that has confused you in your own understanding of what you're looking for in a partner, what you're looking for in a lesbian experience?
I think it makes it harder. You kind of, I mean, because you definitely know, you encounter a lot online of dating profiles. People are really looking to find what are we called? Unicorns. They want to just sleep with us, and they want us to just be their little pet. I don't know.
And like, guys, just let your girl explore.
I've never really, I've never really had an interest in that. Like, I just want to date a nice girl, and I don't know where they are.
And exactly.
It's just even the dating apps that are strictly for like queer people, like her or whatever, like it. They found it, and they go on there and they try to find us. Just leave us alone. Like, let us have our app. Go on Tinder. I don't know.
It really is interesting on Tinder. It seems like more couples than singles.
Oh yeah.
And I'm polyamorous, but I
didn't know that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dope. Me too.
Good to know. But like, it's so hard to even find like poly people who like I vibe with, because there's so many people who are like, oh, we're like ethically non-monogamous. And I'm like, you're not looking for like relationships.
The pool so much smaller.
Yeah.
I can even speak to that in New York. Being in New York City, I was blessed, right? So just a little bit of context about my experience. I didn't know about me being gay growing up. Just had no understanding of that whatsoever. Yeah, I guess not.
We need to hear it.
Well, I think I had like one meaningful relationship in like childhood friend growing up that just like really ended sour. And I think our intimacy, like I never thought it was like romantic or sexual by any means, but like perhaps there was something there in retrospect. But truly I was like boy crazy. I was like, oh my God. So never thought about women in that way, really. And it wasn't until I went abroad in Belgium, fell in love with this girl out of nowhere, go on Tinder. I was like, it's another country. No one's going to know, right? I'm going to school at Clemson, South Carolina, very conservative. And I go and I'm like, let me just, who is this? Right. And of course, like my whole life changed, and I came back and I didn't talk about it with anyone, and I was definitely trying to be straight and just forget about it. And long story short, my boyfriend at the time found out and outed me to all of Clemson. And that was an intense situation. But towards the end of it, I was like, fuck it, I don't care. And I was really blessed for that experience, honestly, because I call that my sexual revolution, where I realized that I no longer had to subscribe to being a good girl in the male lens to validate myself. When I moved to New York City, I certainly was like exploring myself, exploring my sexuality, meeting lots of different women, engaging with lots of different women. But as blessed as I was in New York City to have this huge community, like literally the most lesbians in the world are there, and they're hot, they're cool, they're doing interesting things. The pool becomes so small when you add in that polyamorous component, because people don't take you seriously. But more often than not, the girls that really like you, or the men in my, like both situations, they will try to be like, I can change you. And it's like, no, that's not, you're not listening to my needs. You're not listening to what
it's like
feel.
Forgetting relationship 101, where like, you don't go into a relationship looking to change someone.
Paige, any thoughts on that?
I love that there's people who are polyamorous, and I love that there's people that aren't. And I'm learning. I like it. So I am.
Different strokes for different folks, for sure.
Totally agree. So let's get back to being upstate and our experiences upstate. So I mentioned New York City, and Kay, you and I are talking about this, and you brought up a good point. When you are queer in a small town, there must be some sort of pressure to be moving into an urban metropolis area to have access to other queers, to have access to community, to have access to opportunity that is so limited up here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I did the thing. I was curious if you guys ever felt that pressure.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. I just felt like moving would be a lot. Like, I just like didn't, I don't know. I love where I live.
Same.
And I also hate cities. Like, I like to visit them, but
oh my God, Kay,
I never
really
live
hate
in
New York.
I know, I've been there. I mean, I've visited New York a million times.
Chaos.
And every time I'm there, I'm like, I don't know how people live here. I could never do it.
So Paige, you also were just like, yeah, you love it up here. And
I love it up here. A few years ago, right after I graduated college, I had an interest in moving to like a more queer city. So I did and I took like a year and a half to do it. Like anytime I could have a weekend off or like had any free time, I would go visit my friends who lived in Boston or New York, or I went to Nashville. I went to North Carolina. I went to Miami. I went to any city that I thought like there could be a lot of queer people there. And when I was there, I would get there and I would swipe on Tinder and I would see what was out there.
You're like, and then finally,
and then I just like, it's interesting. You see all these different queer people and it's really exciting, but at the end of the day, I was just like, I'd rather be here. I just love it here.
Right.
And whenever I meet someone up here, I get really excited, but I'm always like, I don't know. It's just never been the right one. It's very confusing. It's very hard. And it's kind of disheartening when things don't pan out.
Yeah. Because it is so exciting.
But I just love it here.
Cool.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. You're like, is this something good? Are we onto something here?
And I asked you that question too, because I was like, literally we were having a conversation and I was like, bro, is this all we got? Like literally,
oh, yeah,
do you think that people settle? Do you think that queer people settle up here just for partnership, just for kinship, and being seen as a queer person and having a queer partner, even if they're not in love with them or the stars are not
people
aligned?
Do that.
I mean,
but
is it to another level? Is my question.
Oh yeah. I don't want to make any blanket statements about all the queer people around here or something.
Yes,
but
yeah,
I'm sure that happens more than it would happen in a city where you have more people to choose from.
Yeah.
And
I don't know a lot of queer people up here.
So
I mean,
why is that? Okay, so you're very involved from an activist standpoint, in a lot of different things, racial justice, etc. What's the queer scene up here like? Is there not at all? Are there not any there's not any activism going on for queer identity? Like, what's the situation?
I think there's a lot of allies around here. There's definitely people who really care and like really like want queer liberation as much as queer people do, or maybe almost as much as they do. But yeah, there's definitely a lack of like organization, especially for like queer adults. Like there's a few like queer youth things down like going on in like Saratoga,
right,
which is a little far from where we're at. But there's just not much organized, and there's not much of like there's no like, I don't know of any bars
there's
that
not a bar,
queer people go to.
There's not an event. There's not anything.
No.
Like not even a lesbian rock climbing club page.
We did that.
You did that.
There's been 2 queer climbing events that I've got to attend
that's cool.
in Keene, and I should keep you posted on when another one of those happens.
Yeah.
But there's this one currently. Yeah, and that was organized by my friend who lives in the Adirondacks in Keene, like, and she said, this is my town. I want to do something in my town for queer people. So she did. And I wish we could do that around here. Like I kind of like, now that I work at the rec climbing gym, it's like, you know what? I should do a queer night. I talked to you about that. Like I should talk to you and be like, hey, can we do a queer night? Like, but what if like other places did that? Like bars, restaurants, like a bowling alley. I don't care. I'd go. I'd go.
Right.
Because there's queer people who don't go on Tinder.
Yeah.
Because they just,
it's exhausting.
It took me years to go on there.
Yeah.
Really?
It took a long time. And, when you first get on there, you remember like not taking it seriously. And the first time you see someone you knew, like it was just like, and now it's just like, it's like I'm drinking like coffee in the morning and I'm like, what's on? like, I'm just like,
wake up first thing. Okay.
Did
Any
anybody-
fresh meat? Any fresh blood? Oh my God, that's terrible. I said.
Or that's what it's like. It's like, let's see what the scene is like. Oh,
still the same?
I've seen you before.
Okay.
I've seen you before. Okay.
Cool. Okay.
So it's like nothing's changed,
So one more thing about going back to this fetishizing point, because I think there's a lot, because of the lack of opportunity, because of the lack of queer identified people, when you go out and people are drunk and girls flirt with you, it gets your hopes up.
Oh, yeah. You never know when you're taking it too far. You kind of have to let them drive, but you also have to let them know like, oh, I'm so interested.
Right. And that does a lot of damage to somebody's mental health. I mean, I feel that way as like when it's another layer of fetishizing, right? Instead of guys being like, what's it like to have sex with a girl? It's like, oh my God, you're so cute. I think I'm bisexual. I need to figure it out. I've never been with a girl. And you're like, cool, dude. Yeah. Like, let's hang out. And then they're not drunk anymore. And the music stops. And you're just like, okay. And then you view us as predatory lesbians, right? It's like, honey, check yourself. Any thoughts on that page?
I mean, that happens to me all the time.
Right. At the bar.
I'll be at the bar and like a girl will be looking at me and I'll be like thinking like, what's going on? And I mean, if I'm drunk, maybe I'll approach them, but if not, I like to let them try to get closer to me. But you still like, at the end of the day, you really don't know this person. And unless they, really come right up to you and just say like, I'm a lesbian, like I'm just thinking they're curious and straight. Like, you see the long nails or you see like the certain giveaways that you're like, this is not,
that. I hate these stereotypes.
This is not true. This is not someone on the team. They're just doing a little tryout. I don't know. And
it's a fun flirtation that never matriculates, never actually happens.
Oh yeah. And you never hear from them again.
And then it is detrimental to your mental health.
Oh yeah.
Okay. You brought this up. What does being a queer person up here do for your mental health when you only have those kinds of, not only, but most frequently have those situations?
I don't go out, so because the whole scene is just not a vibe.
It's horrible.
I attract the worst people when I go out, and I'm just like, no. So, but I feel like around here, at least, or any small town, when you're a queer person, you either have to like move or you have to like work so hard to just like yourself and like take care of yourself. And it's hard. It's definitely an unfair burden placed on queer people.
Right. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the fact that we are all white.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, our view can only be can only stretch so far, right? And it's unfortunate because I would love to have a Black queer person on the show. I would love to pick their brains. I feel like I can't have those conversations about racial justice unless there's somebody here that is BIPOC, that is not white, having that conversation with me. And it's unfortunate that it's so difficult. Anyway, Paige, any thoughts on the mental health piece before we wrap up here?
I mean, I have anxiety and depression, and I feel like maybe if I didn't have like stresses associated with my identity as a lesbian, like maybe those wouldn't impact my life so much, which sucks. But I mean, there's so many things that can cause depression, like your personal life, your work, your family. It's so many things. I feel like, yeah, it can hinder me and it can keep me down sometimes. But some days I just like look in the mirror and I'm like, I love being a lesbian. I love it. I love me. Like, I wish I could date me. Like that would be so fun. Like, so I do feel like mental health and being a lesbian is like, you know, there's the bad, but then there's the good.
What percentage would you say is allocated? Like I think all of us could admittedly say like the anxiety, depression thing. It honestly can apply to so many people. I own that myself, but like what percentage breakdown would you say is attributed, if you had to put a number on to your queer identity being a driver for that?
I would say it's a big piece. I would also say work can be like that.
Yeah.
Financial, and like I guess just personal mental health in general, like my personal like hygiene, you know what I mean? Like upkeep of yourself, I guess, like self-care. We wanted to talk about that. Yeah. Like, I mean, if you go a few days and you don't feel like you've taken care of yourself or eaten healthy or like you're hungover or whatever, like that can make you feel down, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess like of all those things, like, yeah, being a lesbian is a part of it. Yeah. Like my romantic life is a huge part of it. My identity.
I would say mine is like really small, actually.
Yeah.
You know, I say that these things are certainly frustrating, but like my professional life and my purpose takes up probably 85%.
Oh yeah.
That. And then maybe I would reserve like a 7 to 10% queer contribution, because I'm really proud. I've gotten to a point where I'm very proud to be queer, and like I'm proud to be different, and I don't really give a fuck if somebody doesn't like it, you know?
It's fun to be queer.
But you know, not for nothing, are those situations of fetishizing and not having community difficult? Does it make you feel like a black sheep? Yeah. You know, so that's what that 7 to 10% makes up for me. Any thoughts, Kay?
I feel like, at least as far as like social anxiety, I think being queer is probably like 50% contributing to that for me, because I like walk through the world and it's so hard to be like, to not think people are like just judging me and like looking at me. And like, I feel like I get a lot of unwanted attention for just like the way I present, especially like depending, because I'll go from like looking more feminine to looking more masculine. Like I kind of like to play around with like gender identity and like expression, and people, even just like people that I work for and stuff, will be like, oh, you changed your hair, or like, oh, you like look so different today. And just a lot of that I don't like, but also just like going to the grocery store, I get like, I don't know. Like people are looking at me.
And then like queer people are also looking at queer people, and they're like, what the fuck? Stop looking at me. And it's like, no, I'm checking you out. Literally. Right. No, like, just talk to me. Just come back, please. All right, cool, guys. Well, any final thoughts as we wrap up here? Bring it home. That was me hitting up.
Not too much. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast.
I'm really glad you guys were able to come. Well, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what you're
sweating. I told you I was nervous.
Lesbians. Okay, so let's go make some vegan burgers and like chill.
Sounds good.
Live out that stereotype, man. Okay, bye guys.